Hello, everyone. I'm Boom.
I'm Spice. Welcome to episode
Six.
Six. The Return of the Jedi. Yeah, that feels apt.
That is apt.
Yeah, that's
How
apt.
about it?
Although the person that's frozen in the what they call it? Carbonite? Yeah, carbonite. Yeah. If I were to stretch and just absolutely beat the crap out of this metaphor, the person frozen in the carbonite is the podcast. Now we're unfreezing it and going back to our adventures. Exactly. If that's the case, who's the job of the hut? Is it the house?
I guess it's just been, or the lone team who didn't return my calls.
Exactly. There we go. So we figured out who the villain is. Who's like the overarching villain then? Because Jabba the Hutt is just like a movie or two.
Yeah.
Who's your
Who's
Palpatine?
the big bad?
Yeah. The concept of time.
Yeah. There
The
we go.
concept of time. We're always running out. It's never enough. It's hard to prioritize it.
Yeah. Could be Bam as well.
Yeah, Bam. He's like the subtle villain. He's lurking in the shadows. He's ready to turn on a dime. He's our Anakin. He's our Anakin,
Yeah,
dude.
we're hoping he turns out okay, but
Exactly, dude. Then I guess
maybe at the very end he might he might come back into the light, but not until the very end.
well, we know exactly who he's portraying in the future, who mirrors Anakin. Although our viewers don't know yet, and you won't know until I'm ready.
Until
Until
we
I'm
feel
ready to
comfortable in
unveil
telling you.
exactly that my masterpiece. All right, boom. Kindred by Octavia Butler. Give me your first thoughts. Like, not necessarily like in depth stuff. More so, like who should read this? Why would you read this?
Okay.
Do you like it?
So this was a really cool book for me because, as we've mentioned in what we've been talking about, I am into sci-fi and fantasy, and I've also been really enjoying what we've been doing with I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings and books like that, where we talk about these progressive themes, racism, and this book kind of takes all of that and wraps it into one really cool story. So yeah, I mean, if you're someone like me who wants to get something valuable and learn a lesson and also like enjoy a really cool storytelling piece, this is the one.
I absolutely
This one's
concur.
high on my list.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it slots nicely into that gothic lit genre in terms of the themes of, haunted abodes and incest and odd numbers and things like that. It fits in there like a glove. So it's a very, it's a good book for study, not just for pleasure reading, which I always found to be a weird term. Like, I don't know why it had to sound so like suggestive, as if I'm reading like 50 Shades of Grey or something. In reality, I'm reading about, getting transported back to the Civil War, like antebellum South. It's just bizarre to me. But yeah, it doesn't just need to be pleasure reading. If you want to take it and look critically and think about how it relates to the current day, like how the police within that story treat her,
Yeah.
the kind of skepticism they have,
Yeah.
and compared to the systems of power that were in place back then, I think the juxtaposition of those two things is very powerful and very intentional. I don't think Octavia Butler put those cops in there the way they were on accident at all. And I think it's a very stark line to draw between those two figures, a slave master, a slave owner, and a cop and a police officer.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really it's telling in terms of how power dynamics play out in society. And I think beyond just enjoying, because it is a very enjoyable book, as we'll go on to say, if you find studying books with these sorts of themes to be a useful use of your time, then absolutely give this a read. It's not the only reason, not at all, but it is certainly a valid reason for wanting to read um, Kindred by Octavia Butler.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's I had a really good time reading it. This is one of my favorite ones we've done for this podcast for those reasons.
We can get into the tangible rankings once we sew
Yep.
up the spoiler section, because
Yep.
we're gonna have to spoil it to talk about that.
Yeah, once we lay it all out there,
Exactly.
we'll show you where our pieces go.
Did you audiobook it or did you physical?
I did audiobook it, shockingly enough.
And I did the physical. Whoa, that's so crazy. And Spark Notes or no?
That is the question.
Yep. Full disclosure, Boom and I are using Spark Notes because we haven't read this book in a month.
Yeah. As if I imagine the Welcome Back episode will post before this one does.
I can only imagine.
I'll make sure that happens now that I say it.
It wouldn't make any sense if it didn't.
It's been a long time since I've read this book. Same with Spice.
Oh.
So although I remember how much I enjoyed it and the main stuff going on, we're gonna have our Spark Notes handy. So I guess like I always say, I guess this is my common theme here with this part of the podcast. I'd read it. This one is one I would read anyway. Being in the sci-fi fantasy, like I talked about in the intro here, it's just right up my alley for a book that I read on my own time. So if I got to read it for curriculum too, like, heck yeah.
I concur. This book is not particularly long. It's like 200, 300 pages.
Yeah, that too.
It's not crazy. Oh, Sheldon made his first appearance back on the podcast.
Sheldon, back at it.
I felt your cat before I saw your cat, and it kind of freaked me out. I can't lie. I can't imagine being up on a metal folding chair is all that comfortable for a cat.
No, he just...
Because it's a
just
cold.
Whine. Just brought a blanket down for him.
He's a good cat.
Be part of it.
I missed him, our official mascot. That old chatty Cathy. Alright, boom. So, is there anything else you want to get out of the way before we get into the spoilers?
I don't think so. I think we're ready to get into some more conversation here, and the best way to do it would be to talk about all of it.
Before I forget, similar to I Know Why the Cage Spurt Sings, and we're not going to spend as much time on it in this episode. There is a lot of themes of sexual assault within this novel. There are some scenes that play on it significantly, and there's some pivotal moments within the plot of this story, so you couldn't really cut it out if you wanted to. So that's something to keep in mind. If that's not something you're comfortable with, feel free not to read it. You don't have to read any of the books that we suggest.
We'll give you a pass on this one.
Oh, exactly. And only this one. Your get out of jail free card only works once. But in all sincerity, you gotta, think for your own mental health. And geez, Sheldon. And if it is not something you're comfortable with, it's not something that would be healthy for you, read something else. There's a lot of good literature out there, and we've already gone over a lot of good literature that doesn't touch on this. Like Rebecca doesn't feature any sexual assault, nor does A Room of One's Own, nor does Frankenstein. So that's something to keep in mind, is that you do not need to read this if it is something that is going to make your mental health worse. But on that note, if you can read this, if it is something you're comfortable with, please do. It's a good book. On that note, thank you for showing up. If you don't want this to get spoiled for you, we're about to go on our giant break. If you're leaving, thanks again.
Do we have the next episode to share for
Oh,
those?
thank you, Boom. Good call. I'm
I
a
just
little
about
rusty.
Completely, yeah, I know it. I don't even have my 4-point Google slide open that tells me the outline. That's why we do it.
Oh, man, you're actually right. Oh yeah. So our next book is Hour of the Star by Clarice Lispector. I recently read it for a class. It's a really weird book. It was originally written in Portuguese, translated to English, and it is trippy and subversive and clever, funny, laugh out loud funny at certain points, which very seldom is that the case for me. So if you decide to pick that up, it's only like 70 pages, and it's a fun little book. It's real interesting, and I hope you check it out with Boom and I, because it's bizarre, and very rarely do you read a book like that, like this bizarre. It's a good time. All right, thanks again, Boom. I appreciate it.
Oh, that's what I'm here for.
Oh man.
All right.
Catching me when I fall. Oh man. All right. On that note, I've been Spice.
And I'm Boom. And thanks for being here for the non-spoiler section. Hopefully you can come back and watch the rest when you finish the book. That'd be cool.
Of course.
We'll take the views. And if you have any suggestions for books you'd like us to read, let us know.
Yeah, books that you have read, books that you anticipate reading, maybe a book for a class, a book that you'd like help on.
Absolutely, yeah, that's what this is for.
Short stories, poetry, if you want to send us your poetry, you put it in the comments.
Yeah,
We've had one comment.
Absolutely. Yeah, come on, give us a comment. We're happy to see.
Yeah, exactly. Our previous comment was a bot that was trying to like steal my information.
I think we have one more comment on a poetry one, but that was a friend of mine.
Oh, was it? Oh, that's cute. I'm gonna have to give it like a thumbs up the next time I'm over there.
Yeah, a friend of mine who will make an appearance on a poetry potluck episode.
I sure hope so. God, it can't just be Bam.
I hate. Bam's been great.
Bam is fantastic. Bam has blown me away every time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, but it'll be just for some diversity
of course,
in
yeah.
guests and a pretty cool outlook.
In thought, like in experience, in style, like it's necessary, I think. And yeah. If Bam doesn't like that, I don't even know what to say. He can start his own podcast. Bam and I don't know, Bam and Nate just talking about stuff. Our friend Nate DeBow, who's been trying to convince us just to talk about stuff as opposed to books. Just get on and talk, guys. No, it's not going to happen. You got to write a poem to get on our podcast. All right, Boom. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Nope. I think we're good to go now.
Fantastic.
So,
if you don't want spoilers, please exit the ride. With I don't know, like when it comes to a complete stop. I've been Spice.
I'm Boom.
We'll see you after the break.
And all right.
Welcome back. Did you get your popcorn? Sweet. Oh man. So Boom, did you like this book?
Absolutely, I did. Yeah, I like this book a lot. It was very much entertaining in a way that made me keep reading it every morning ahead of other books I was reading. Very good. It brings up a lot of cool, like, ethical questions with the relationship that Dana has with Rufus and others. Uh, yeah, really cool book. Yourself, Spice?
I totally agree. And I thought it was funny for a second there. I thought you were just going to go, I like this book. It was good. Literally, like that just sort of sounded like what you're gearing up for.
Cool book. Yep.
I like the themes surrounding it. I feel like I did this. I don't know if it was subconsciously or if it was consciously because it's been a while now. But I chose this in conjunction with I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and I'm not sure exactly why, but I know thematically they fit because you're looking at these power structures that, despite Octavia Butler and Maya Angelou being several decades apart, and Dana, when she gets cast back, being way further back, the systems of power still resemble each other. And I felt like that was important because you look at, like, you look at Maya and you look at Dana and you look at how Dana's treated in the past and some of the stuff, some of the apparatuses holding them down remain. You know, the misogyny, the racism, the sexism that leads to repeated, like it's not a coincidence that these two contemporary pieces of literature written by black women involve sexual assault. It's just a problem that predominantly, or at least disproportionately, impacts women of color and minorities in America. And it's not a mistake that they include that. It's a reflection of real life problems. And I think that's an important message. And I think delivering it through the means of sci-fi is useful. Because you think of historically, like, do you know the concept of a kaiju? It's a Japanese word. It's for like a monster, like an immovable force, and that's what Godzilla was, where the reactions to radiation in terms of like how it's perceived in America versus Japan are very different for obvious reasons. And Godzilla was made in response to some tests done in Bikini Atoll and some other places that were a little too close for comfort for a recovering Japan. And Godzilla was a manifestation of those fears come to life, put on screen. You know, this giant lizard that has been brought to life by radiation. And it is absolutely not a coincidence that that's mirroring the problems within their society that were caused by the atomic bombs, the need to rebuild, the fear of a second attack, or in this case, a third attack, the fear of all-out fallout from it. And the defeat of Godzilla is meant to be cathartic to these people because they've been dealing with this problem and now it's been vanquished. And that sort of mirrors this story in the sense that this is not a real problem. You and I will never be cast back to the antebellum South. This is not a realistic situation, but it's meant to mirror real life problems. And it's not so close to the bone that it's super uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but not like so uncomfortable that it's like I'm reading like an obituary right now of a real life person. Like, no, this is fantasy, but it still mirrors the real world. I think it's also seen a bit in Frankenstein, because that was a manifestation of the bless you, Sheldon. Bless you. He looks so intense right now. Is he looking for?
I think he heard something click down in the basement or something.
Go find a rat. I want him to bring me a bird or something. What was I gonna say? Frankenstein was sort of a manifestation of the fears of technology and science moving so far ahead, and the fears surrounding that. You know, the sort of my apologies for yawning. Oh man, I've had a very long day. Manifestation of those fears where it's like can we is less of the question and more should we, in that sort of Jurassic Park situation. So that's a real long-winded and roundabout way to say, yeah, I like it. I like the way it does stuff. Do you have any thoughts on that, Bo?
Yeah, I know that I think we might have even talked about that before. I just hadn't remembered it, but that's a really interesting point to bring up with the Godzilla, the kaiju thing, and that totally mirrors this book. Another thing I was thinking about that I really like about the way she writes, and I was reading about it today, was that I just like the way that she writes her science fiction and the way that she categorizes science fiction. I guess she had an interview sometime, and she was talking about the way that the way she writes, there's 3 types of science fiction: the what if, the if only, and the if this goes on. And that was pretty cool. And I think that this book kind of, I mean, it fits in there with that, and it brought. So I guess that's more of a comment on her and not the book, but it definitely is going to influence the way I'm looking at sci-fi books going forward.
Well, you know what I've got to ask then.
Yes.
Which of the 3 subcategories do you think
Yeah.
falls into it? Yeah.
Yeah, this one's interesting because I guess for Dana, and I mean, at that time it's kind of like it goes into the what if. You'd think it was it'd be a play on of almost like a 4th category of like back then. But I guess it's a what if. I mean, it's if you were to, if time travel existed and you had people saved their bloodline, and even though they're terrible people, and interesting.
See, I'm gonna disagree with you here, real bad. I'm gonna disagree. See, yeah, exactly, dude.
Shoot.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm disagreeing so aggressively right now. It's insane. I think it's a what if this goes on, because you think about, and this is something we're gonna have to touch on in a second because it falls in line with a lot of the stuff that we've read thus far. In the framing device of the police in the in the hospital, and the amount of scrutiny they bring upon her husband, it's really telling. And I think that's the what if this goes on part, where it's like this apparatus that's been holding down women of color for so long is still alive. It still exists. Sandra Bland still happened. Breonna Taylor still happened. It's, the rates of assault among, or, sexual assault among people or women of color specifically is so much higher than the national average, that these problems permeate. These problems exist. It's like, and what was the last name of that girl who went missing and was found dead? That vlogger, Pertino? Her first name was Gabby.
Yeah.
Well,
Sounds.
In any case, yeah. In the process of fact finding and trying to find evidence to get her boyfriend arraigned, they found the bodies of several women of color who also died in that park, and it says something about the media coverage of this one white woman versus these scores of black women. And it just goes to show these problems exist. They permeate and they continue to persist. And that plays into the sort of sci-fi it is. It's a what if this goes on? These power structures continue to go unchallenged. I think it can be both.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right there.
So it's still a what if my arm got caught in the wall?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's more on just the total fantasy land part of it there. Like, I mean, I guess a lot of that stuff can be what if, but in like all reality, like that, yeah, what if this goes on? You can end up right where you have that. I mean, history happens in real life.
Well, it has gone on.
And it keeps happening. Yeah, it continues to, and it's not, yeah.
Yeah, that's just sad. Yeah. So I've been meaning to touch on this because it's telling that, like, I've read a lot of Gothic literature, partially for just classes, partially because it's a popular genre. And one thing I found is a lot of our books. Gosh, I'm so sorry. I've had a really long day. A lot of our books have framing devices where you introduce the novel and have your reader get dropped into it. You know, it could be a little stark, give you some information that plays into the end, create some tension. And it feels like every framing device we get is better and better. Where you've got Frankenstein, where it's a bit clunky. It's hard to read all these letters and not feel a
it's
little
labor intensive.
Exactly. It's a good framing device. It doesn't lend itself to much utility. Like, I want to keep reading. I want the monster. Damn it! I want to see the monster, guys.
Yeah, that's a good point. That one, it's like, I mean, it's just pages of entries that are important.
Yeah.
I mean, it's putting you where you are, I
Not
guess.
entirely.
Yeah.
There's a reason. Like,
interesting, I guess. In
no
retrospect.
Frankenstein adaptation involves like any of that.
But yeah, now with this book, I mean, you jump in, and I mean, you're right in the meat of it.
Oh yeah.
You're like, wow, this is like, it's a great hook, and it's important. So
I totally agree. And then with Rebecca, it's not really that important to know that Manderley burns down. Spoiler. That Manderley burns down eventually. It just creates that tension. It's like,
yeah, absolutely. That just it creates that just overarching tension of the whole book, that slow burn. But yeah, no, if you didn't know that, it wouldn't, or if it didn't happen, it wouldn't drastically change much of the book.
So you take the important information of Frankenstein and the tension built by Rebecca, and you combine them, and you get Kindred.
Yeah, it's a great way to just get you involved instantly. I mean, it's as soon as you start this book, someone's arm is caught in the wall.
Oh, yeah.
That's nuts. I mean,
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I'll stick around and figure out what's going on with that, and then right off the bat, you're getting into some pretty serious stuff.
Now, there's some more moral dilemmas that pop up here, similar to I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, but they're not as difficult to wrangle, I don't think, which I think is a symptom of the sci-fi nature of it, where it's not like the trolley problem. Well, it is like the trolley problem in the sense that no one's ever going to make me sit there next to a lever and be like, which one do you pull? No, of course not. So no one's ever going to ask me, hey, would you kill this ancestor of yours if he tried to have sex with you against your will? I have no idea. But whatever answer I give, it's never going to be useful, like in a real life situation. Meanwhile, you take, like, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and you go, well, hey, what if this person who hurt you got killed? What would you think about it? Like, what would you want them to do? Which reality do you think would sit better with you ultimately? These are questions that are useful because, I've been hurt by people. I've wanted revenge, although not lately. I've wanted things to happen to them. But then if they do, what do you think? Who's to blame? You or the people who actually did it? It's really difficult in that situation to decide whether you want Mr. Freeman to live or die and how that would sit with your soul. But with Rufus, it's a little more cut and dry for me. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point. I like it. It's just like you said. I mean, it's a lot less real when it's back in time talking about a great granddad being mean to you, because that's never you're never going to be
Why?
in the antebellum South dealing with that, presumably.
Yeah.
Because I know I, for one, have promised to myself, if we do time travel, I'm going to come back and tell myself. So I'm either a liar or we haven't
Yet.
in my lifetime.
It's like that Stephen Hawking. He threw a party for time travelers, and he announced it after it happened, like so that they'd double back, go to the party.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool.
Nobody showed up, so they don't exist, I guess. Or Stephen Hawking like gave
Or
him
he's
the wrong
not cool
address,
enough to party with. Like, damn.
or like he didn't publicize it enough.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know about it.
Think I'd get an invite.
Yeah, jeez.
Build a time machine just
I
to
mean,
go to the party.
We got a podcast with a couple listeners, and we didn't get the invite.
One of them's me.
Yeah, two of the consistent listeners are sitting right here.
Exactly. And the cat.
3 if you count, if you count Sheldon.
He's always listening, that little eavesdropper.
Yeah, listening and giving his opinion.
Oh yeah. Very
Jeez,
vocal.
Today.
Hey, Sheldon. A wise man once said nothing at all. Yeah, keep your mouth shut. I'll take your opinion when I ask for it. What were we even talking about? Oh yeah. So, would you have killed Rufus?
Yes. I think at that point in the story, the name is escaping me, of her,
Damn.
the relative she needed
Oh.
to live. It started with an H, I think. It was like her great grand, like Alice and Rufus's kid was already born
Yeah.
at this time. So I think at that point,
She was safe.
it's less. Yeah, I think, not that she was even thinking about that at the time. I don't think she had time to consider that, but I think either way, regardless, roll the dice, and I mean, kill Rufus.
This may play into an adaptation better than the novel then, because if you did the like a movie or show adaptation, it would not generally open with a framing device the way it does, and with that device, she survives, and
Yeah.
if there was a series or a movie, you probably would have a little more stakes there, and maybe she's looking down on herself expecting to disappear, and she just doesn't.
Yeah, that'd be a good point too. I guess being in her shoes at the time,
Yeah.
without having seen the framing device to know that she'll make it,
Yeah.
that'd be a tough decision. Because at that rate, I guess she wouldn't know. Time travel's hard.
Time travel is hard.
I guess I would be pretty terrified. You kill Rufus, and all of a sudden it's like Marvel's Endgame, and you're
Yeah, exactly. I
just
don't feel so
fading
good,
out
Mr.
here.
Boom.
Yeah.
If you had a time machine, what's the first thing you'd do?
Oh, jeez.
Which is predicated on how you think about time travel.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a loaded question. That's a loaded question. That's interesting.
Like
Gosh.
if you believe in the butterfly effect,
Mhm.
or if you think everything that would happen back then already has happened, where it's like your meddling already happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Like if we're going to post these videos, no matter what, and if we're not going to post these videos, we're not going to post them no matter what. So it's like that, where it's like you intervening.
It's
So,
just either way, it's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, which is not the situation Dana was in. Dana needed to stop the fire, needed to save him from the river. Otherwise, she would be dead. So, with that being said, I guess it starts with which rule of time travel do you believe in?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Do you have a preference on your rules of time travel? For me, I guess I wouldn't quite. I guess I'd lean more towards like Avengers time travel than like butterfly effect time travel. Where you can go and just like keep him from getting that Infinity Stone and not like, I mean, the world isn't like just a pile of dust or something, crazy. You're now a frat guy living a life that's totally different. You don't know your roommate.
See, logically, I think it's everything that happened. But I would want it to be like stuff you do matters, like a Back to the Future thing, where it's like if you mess around with your family, you could disappear like right now. In that case, going with the one I find funnier, which is if you mess around, stuff's gonna go wrong. I don't know what I'd do first. Like, have I told you about the butterfly effect in my family? Where it's like, there's a very tangible moment in history that if this didn't happen, I probably wouldn't exist. Or O.J. Simpson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course. Yeah, the football player.
Just the football player.
Nothing else. So, my parents were on their, second date. And they were sitting in a bar, and the Simpson Bronco chase happened. I sat there for hours watching it. And I've had this idea in my head where it's like, if that chase did not happen, who knows if I'd be alive? Because then you get into stuff like, well, they spent longer at the date than they might not have, like they might have had to go on another date if, hadn't spent that time there. They might have broken up. Maybe my dad would have met someone new after the date. Then, everything's different. Who knows? So, thank you, O.J. Simpson, for allowing me to exist. That's pretty neat. So, with that being established as the kind of time travel I'd like to do, it would have to be after I was born, which, to avoid getting myself out of existence. Try my best.
Yeah, you can work with the situation you leave yourself in, but
if I just
existence, that's a kind of absolute.
Maybe I want to beat somebody up. Who would I beat up? I would time travel 30 years into the future, and assuming R. Kelly's still around, just give him the worst beat down of his life. He just deserves it.
I would probably consider telling Freshman Boom to just quit hanging on those shots so long, man. Knee pound up or something, or maybe try a different type of offense with your wrestling that might save your shoulders for a little bit, so you can, at least finish out high school with them. But nice. When you get into that, it's like, well, if I kept wrestling, would I have joined? Would I have the career I have, a new house with an unspecified amount of rooms and roofs?
Yeah, and then with a vague location.
Yeah, who knows?
My clandestine house that lies in a place with people, at least one.
Yeah, so I don't at the time, it'd be, it sounds like it'd be good, but, who knows?
You can go brutal with it, where it's like, oh yeah, now I'm on the wrestling team junior year, and me being on the bus makes us 5 minutes late, and we get, nailed by a car.
Yeah, exactly. Then, who knows? The way we're at right now, I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah, exactly. If this were Deal or No Deal, I'm taking my case. I'm content with it.
Yeah, I'll take it. Who knows? And with wrestling, it's I liked it. I do. I still do. I still do it sometimes, but it's not like that was the thing that's gonna have me make it.
Yeah.
If I could have been the best in the world and not been that much better off than I am at this moment.
Oh yeah.
Maybe later.
Boom Askren. Go to the Olympics. Not quite as hairy. No, not nearly. Oh man.
Just be talking about we'd have a cryptocurrency podcast instead of a book podcast.
That's not us.
I wouldn't even know what to do.
I don't think
I wouldn't be able to have a normal conversation with anybody.
Exactly, dude.
I'd have to bring up
It's either
cryptocurrency.
you bring it up or they bring it up.
Exactly. I'll make sure one of them happens.
Oh, exactly. Now I need to bring up to people, oh yeah, I've got a book reading podcast.
Exactly.
It's got 14 subscribers.
Yeah, I've been known to plug this podcast to everyone I know.
Oh yeah, I tell people all the time. My coach is always like, are you Boom or Spice? Oh, I'm Spice. I'm Spice.
Take a guess.
Obviously. Clearly, I'm Spice. I'll explain to people my intricate backstory about why I'm Spice, which I will not relay on the podcast. But then they're like, well, why is he Boom? I'm like, he's just Boom.
There's no backstory to tell.
That's great.
It's the name my parents gave me, sorta.
Back to the book.
Okay, yeah.
Where would you rank it in your favorite books on the podcast thus far?
Okay.
Starting from the bottom.
All right, so bottom. I'll be brief on the bottom. So it's Kill Mockingbird.
Shocking.
Yep, shocking the world. Okay, next, let's see, we've done 6 of these things. I think it was A Room of One's Own. I was aware of that. And then, I guess, the trouble starts at 4 here. Like, they're pretty close. I think my 4th would be Frankenstein.
That's interesting to me.
It's me as well. Coming into this, that's where I struggle, because that's still like, I've enjoyed it enough for it to be like 2, 2, 3, but like
oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed, and then the second, 2, 3 is real close with me,
yeah.
But I think I'm gonna do Kindred at 3, Rebecca at 2, and I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings is still number 1.
Now what?
That's my tentative, off the top of my head, without crossing stuff off on paper, list.
Let's read that out again, because I've got some questions.
Okay.
Bottom.
Harper Lee
Yep.
on the bottom.
Poor gal.
Yeah, it is.
She doesn't
It is what it is. It's.
She meant so well.
I'll give her the consolation that a lot of people like this book.
I will read her sequel at some point.
And I will give another book a chance.
Exactly.
We've thrown stones at this book enough. But, okay, 4, A Room of One's Own. I enjoyed that one. We both enjoyed that one.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just stiff competition here.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'd make 4 Frankenstein.
Yeah.
3 was Kindred.
Yeah.
2 Rebecca, and 1 I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings.
See, it's interesting as we move forward. I'm excited to see where our opinions go, because mine goes, obviously, To Kill a Mockingbird, and then A Room of One's Own, which I loved. I like using it as a resource. I like writing about it. I like talking about it. But it is what it is. It's a nice, fun little piece of nonfiction, but that's all it is.
Yeah.
And then I'd go Kindred. Kindred, Frankenstein, Rebecca. I Know Why the Caged Bird
Okay,
Sings.
so we have
There's
one
exactly.
flop there.
That's because while I like Kindred a lot, it pales in comparison in terms of the heft, the weight of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings.
Mm-hmm.
And they fit in such similar lanes that I feel like Frankenstein just rises above it because it's so unique way we've been reading.
Yeah. Okay, I know what you mean. I know exactly. I know what you're talking about. It's like you got like a 3 cheese, awesome grilled cheese like sitting right here, and then just like, like still just a perfectly made regular grilled cheese. But then like there's you got a pasta salad here with Frankenstein, and it's like you're gonna grab the best. I just made pasta salad for a potluck at work.
It's not a poetry potluck.
So you're gonna grab the best grilled cheese. You're gonna grab a side there. It's
Of
not
course.
two of the same thing.
Yeah.
Grabbing two grilled cheeses would be a little weird.
No, that's a very useful analogy. It's just like
Kind of out there.
the
but-
road to get there. So much.
Like I was trying to come up with something on the fly here just to describe it, and pulled it out of the air.
I think a problem this book has is that Rufus is so despicable that it's like there's very little contention there. But you think of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. It's like the dad is flawed, but we still generally like him.
Yeah.
The mom is flawed, but we still generally like him, or her, rather. The grandmother, similar deal. So you, like outside of Mr. Freeman, but Mr. Freeman isn't around all that much.
No.
For obvious reasons. So having such a detestable character play as the counterpoint to her, while it's poignant, powerful, it does not lend itself to being a very dynamic character or a very controversial villain. I like a villain generally that I can root for.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see. I know what you mean.
And this isn't that at all.
No, and there's a lot. I mean, you can, and in a lot of these parts of the book where Rufus is just being a jerk. You're not rooting for Rufus. You're just hoping he changes, but he
Yeah.
never gives any indication that he's going to.
No.
He's just terrible. You just,
Yeah.
as a good person and knowing Dana is a good person, you're hoping for it. So but it's not really suspenseful because by the end of the book that he's manipulative and awful. But it's just, for me, it's just an interesting relationship they have where no matter how much this guy does, like, she still finds herself
Compelled.
compelled to help him, compelled to feel for him. I mean, he's like late into his adulthood, and she knows he's awful, and he's been doing terrible stuff for a long time, and still, like, she talks about this emotional connection she has with him, possibly the kinship there, and knowing that she needs to save him to live. But it's just it's an interesting dynamic, but not so much as like what you can get from a villain where you're like, they have a point. Like,
I think the word summoned is useful here, not just because like it has those two separate definitions where it's like she's literally summoned, like it's like a jury duty of sorts, but then she's figuratively summoned. She's summoned like within her heart, within her soul. She's compelled to compelled is the word I was actually thinking of. She's literally compelled to act. She's figuratively compelled to act, and I think it's an interesting use of that term that we came across. And I think that I think you sacrifice something when you make such a detestable villain, which is fine. It's useful, but it doesn't lend itself to a very like he's a static character, which I don't think is a criticism. He's meant to be written like that.
mm-hmm.
But at the same time, that's just an area of the novel that you're not really growing.
And I think that's something I look over in Frankenstein, just having been so long, is the villain, whoever you decide that is in Frankenstein.
Well, now you know what I need to ask you. Who's the villain in Frankenstein?
Exactly. That's the question, and I guess that's what makes Frankenstein, I can absolutely see why you'd put it above, just for that, that contrast in characters alone.
Now I need to know who you
I'm
go with.
thinking about it as I say it. I guess I've thought about it. I don't think either of them are good.
Oh, I think the monster's good.
I think the monster was good.
No, I think he's righteous. I think
But
I think his anger is justified, and I think he's someone who doesn't fit into society, and I think his lashing out is totally like
it's
legitimate.
I understand.
For granted, going for people who aren't Dr. Frankenstein.
And that's where I draw. Although people who aren't Dr. Frankenstein also ostracize him.
Yeah, exactly.
Just as bad.
Yeah.
And try to kill him. It's a tough thing because he didn't ask to be in the world. He's in this world
and he got
where
abandoned.
he's got no friends. He's abandoned, and he just can't get a break from anybody.
Yeah.
Even people he's helped out for a long time. In the shadows, he tried to explain it. He talked to the guy.
Yeah.
The guy knows he has good intentions. It's tough, you know. I guess it just comes down to, like, at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, is killing wrong to you no matter what, or is it justified sometimes, even if, like, people are trying to kill you, even if they don't stand a fair shot at killing you, they're still trying.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question,
Exactly.
And it's not an easy one to answer.
Well, it's easy for me. Yeah,
for me,
Frankenstein's
anyway.
the villain.
No, he's bad.
Yeah,
It's just whether the monster
is good.
I guess is where I struggle. Dr. Frankenstein, he's
bad.
Absolutely bad. Not a shred of good. I mean, you know,
he's
just
more,
not a good dude.
Yeah, and he's a far more dynamic character than Rufus. He goes from not wanting to commit to being fully committed at the end. It's a shame he had to go through all that to eventually find that fire, though. Is there anything else you want to touch on, particularly?
Not that I can think of off the top. Well, not quite the top of my head, I suppose. I've thought
30
about
months
this
after
all
the
day.
top of
Yeah.
my head, I think that we touched on the fantasy elements and the socio-political elements, but I don't think we touched on the combination of the two. And it's hard to articulate unless you read the book. So if you guys find those cross sections interesting, the way that, you know, similar to Kaiju and Dracula and other works of, you know, like The Invisible Man and The Thing and all this stuff, if that's something that is interesting to you, read this book, because it's a fantasy that also touches on deeper meaning, which is the best kind of fantasy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my favorite part of the book. That's probably why my knee-jerk reaction was to rank it so high, like above Frankenstein, was just because that was just a really cool thing for me to find in this series. Like, just something that I was really psyched to read about, and it didn't disappoint.
That's fantastic. I'm glad my recommendation pulled through.
Yeah, no, this is good. We're back on a winning streak here with books we like.
Exactly.
And so far the top 5, I mean, they're all great.
Yeah, absolute
You
bangers.
reach out to the top 6, you know, it's like then there's a couple fall-offs.
This next one's a little controversial. I don't know, dude. With Hour of the Star.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. Like, you're going to read up on here, like, what am I even reading? It's interesting, man. I think it'll be your number 3.
No kidding.
That's where I think it'll be. I think it'll be not top 3, bottom 3. No, I think it'll
Okay.
be, I think it'll slot right between Frankenstein and A Room of One's Own, which is not a bad place to be.
No, that's, I
Not at
mean, like we just said, almost all of these so far have been like real winners.
Yeah. All right, buddy. It's nice talking to you again.
It's
Makes
been a
it sound like
while.
we had a falling out. No, we did not have a falling out. Boom and Spice have been pals for ages, and we'll always be pals. I don't think we've ever had a fight. There's that time with the shorts.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was brief.
My shorts, man. Oh man. All right, buddy. On that note, I've been Spice.
And I'm Boom, and thanks for listening.